the other two, I'm not responsible.
Which means I don't understand what they're doing.
All right. Now let's keep the lights on.
Which ones?
I think both, actually. All right, here we are, beginning wide field astrophotography. So I tell you what, I'm going to tell you some stuff here, and there are people in the audience, like Mark and Chris, who probably know a heck of a lot more than I do about general photography, or general camera stuff. A lot of my expertise has come through trial and error and Google and watching YouTube videos. So yeah, this is, let's go ahead and get going. So I know a lot of our members have expressed an interest in getting started, but it's like, okay, where do I go? How do I get going in this thing, right? So that's kind of what tonight is, and it's just how to just get out, forget all the unnecessary equipment, the complicated equipment, and get out there and do some photography. So first step, most important thing is just be willing to learn. That means a lot of things, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You got to ask questions, right? You got to ask questions to other people. Later on, we'll talk about a group we've formed that's specifically designed to help people get going. But ask your questions here. Email me. Email us if you want to get started. Google and YouTube. I mean, I've learned a ton from YouTube. Some really good folks out there. Astro Backyard's a good one. He's kind of evolved a bit. He started out being very high gig going. But if you go back in time, you can really pick up some good things. And he's got a good website to go along with it. Cloudy Nights is another good resource. If you're not familiar with that, it's all astronomy based. All right, yeah, for the next, I'm going to attempt to kind of write an evolution of articles in the next 4 months. We started with this month. So this month was pretty much what we're doing tonight. Next month will be about star trails and how to do those. And this is the biggest thing. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. Don't get discouraged, all right? Just fail fast, learn from it. Make sure you learn from it. Find out what you did wrong and move along. Okay, so the BEL, basic equipment list. And here's where I would like to hear anybody who wants to add from the audience, please feel free to do so, right? So obviously a camera with an interchangeable lens is good. You may be able to do some things with, I don't even know what you call it.
Point and shoot.
Point and shoot.
Yeah.
I've never done it, so I can't really comment on it. But a DSLR with interchangeable lens, you can do quite a lot of things. Good tripod. Don't skimp on this. Yeah, a wobbly tripod is the worst. So you want to spend a little bit more money. You see them like on Amazon for $70 or something. Look up a little bit of higher quality. Go up to around 100. Maybe, I don't know, Mark or Chris, if you have any input on a good tripod.
It's all a question of how portable it needs to be. The tripod that I use when I'm traveling, I wouldn't use when I'm home.
Right, yeah.
And I use the small light tripod when I'm traveling because I don't have a choice.
Yeah,
So
right.
you can't always have everything you want.
Right.
And one thing I've seen with tripods too that's a big help is the center braces.
Yeah,
It
so
stiffens them up quite a bit.
yeah, if you turn around, this is the one that kind of Mark has just described. That's the travel one. That's the one I'll take on travels. It's not very sturdy. It gets the job done. That's my workhorse for just even if I'm doing tripod stuff at home. But a good tripod is really important. Short focal length lens is kind of important. So what's good about, I don't know so much about the Nikon packages, but the Canon packages, they come with this 50mm lens. It's not the greatest lens in the world, but you can do some pretty cool things with just the 50. Then if you want to add to it, you drop down to like anywhere from between 12 and 25. There are some very good lenses out there that you don't have to pay Canon and Nikon for all these bucks. I have a 14 millimeter Rokinon, which was roughly about, well, we'll get there in a second. The other thing is really good thing to have is a remote shutter. So the problem is if you're going to take pictures and you're using your finger, you get a little bit of wobble. The stars may not be as sharp. You can put a delay in there. They have the timer delays. You can do that if you want. But the remote shutter, and how much are they? I don't even know, like $20, right?
Depends on, if you buy it from the camera manufacturer,
Yeah, no.
it's a lot more. It's
Right.
like any other accessory. One comment I would make is 50 millimeters is the standard lens for a full frame camera.
Okay.
The
That's good to
standard
know.
prime lens for an APS-C format chip, which are infinitely more affordable,
Right.
is 35 millimeters.
Right. Okay.
And
Good.
most of the manufacturers make very good, moderate speed 35s as well.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll talk about a little bit about that full frame and the APC sensor. Right. All right. So the cost, the biggest cost could be in your camera itself. Not necessarily. I mean, some of the lenses out there. I covet these 400 millimeter lenses that run anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000, but that ain't never going to happen. But you can get, a pretty, a low-end camera, and I'm glad Mark brought out. So the non-professional cameras, you can get a good one for $350 to $400. It's not the newest generation, but pretty affordable. Cloudy nights, they have classifieds, and they have constant stream of modified cameras. And, so here's a T4i that I saw today or yesterday. That's $430. So it's modified to pick up that red spectrum of light that you normally wouldn't with a DSLR. I'm not going to talk about what that means tonight. Talked about the tripod already. And then the lenses. So, a decent, really wide-angle lens will be somewhere in that neighborhood. Any other thoughts on types of, these wide-angle lens? Costs
Well,
are-
again, for an APS-C, you go down to 10 millimeters instead of 14.
Right,
That would be the low end. That it's about the same price.
right.
Um,
And it's the equivalent, the same, right? Same focal length.
The same equivalent for
Yeah.
scaling the chip size to the focal length.
Right.
Yeah. Same field of view.
I'd also recommend checking out borrowlenses.com. You can rent lenses for 3 days at a time for pretty cheap. They're excellent service too. I use them from time to time.
Borrowed lenses.
Borrowlenses.com or lensrentals.com. They have really excellent prices and great customer service.
Huh.
Yeah,
So if you've got some special event like an eclipse or something.
there you go.
Another good site is Astromart. If you're want to buy it, there's a lot of nice used equipment.
Yeah.
And affordable prices.
Right. Astromart, you have to pay, right, to join Astromart?
Yeah, it used to be like 25. I think they upped the subscription, but still pretty affordable. Unless you want to, sell it yourself, then
Right,
I think
right.
it goes up from there too.
What's the name of it?
Astromart.
Astromart.
MART.
Yeah, I used to sell a lot of stuff on there until they started making you pay. And it's
Yeah, I paid one time and then they don't tell you it's a yearly fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't tell you that.
Yeah. But Cloudy Nights is free.
Right.
And it's pretty, even pretty reputable. You can, do your homework on the person and, and the equipment, so. All right, so like I said, starting out simple, I have a full frame camera. So, I have this 50 millimeter lens, and this is just simple tripod shot. Here's my neighbor's house, here's my neighbor's tree, and you can see Orion there, it's just 8 seconds. Yeah, Jim.
Explain full frame camera.
Okay, I think I was gonna do that later, but we can do
Oh,
it now.
all right,
It's
never
fine.
mind.
It's good. So a full frame sensor, I don't know, I probably shouldn't even try. Who can explain it?
24 by 36 millimeters. It's the same size as 35 millimeter film.
Right.
That's all it is.
Okay.
And what the industry realized is that for most people, a sensor that's 2/3 that size is a lot more economic for them to make and sell.
Right, right. So,
So that's why you'll hear people say APS-C or DX format chips. They're basically just, instead of being 24 by 36, they're 18 by 24, approximately. There's some variation from company to company.
so with an APC sensor, am I saying that right?
APS-C.
APS-C. The equivalent would be what, about 75 millimeters?
35.
No,
50.
for this?
Yeah, 50 would go down by two-thirds, to two-thirds.
Would go up.
Two-thirds of 50. No, go down. Oh, you mean if you shot, wait, what?
If I shot with the APS-C.
If you shot with that lens with the
Yeah.
APS-C, yeah, that'd be roughly the equivalent of 75 millimeters.
Right, so it's a multiplication factor, I think it's 1.6.
Okay.
Right, for Canon.
For Canon, yeah, 1.5 for Nikon, I think.
Somewhere.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, it's in the noise.
Right.
It's a small purchase.
Is the rule at 500 the same for both sensors?
No, we're gonna talk about the Rule 500. The Rule 500 turns out to be a little bit antiquated, but we're gonna cover that. Okay, so, here's some of the possibilities. So again, I'm shooting with a full frame, 14 millimeters. This is a single 30-second shot from Sedona, Arizona. Big difference. I can't do this in my backyard, right? At ISO 1600. This is just about daybreak there. But you can see here you got the Big Dipper, Little Dipper, and a little bit of a Milky Way there. If you're going to shoot wide field, and I think it's always good to have some other subject in there, and landscapes or some trees or something, because otherwise everybody's looks the same, right? So that's what I tried to do. This is right out of this backyard of an Airbnb. It was just amazing. So, the Milky Way is setting down here. And again, this is a 30-second exposure. This is the first shot I ever took with a 14 millimeter lens right behind this little Airbnb. It's pretty, I love this picture. I was just trying to see what it could do. It's still one of my favorites, even though it's, you got some clouds and stuff going on. There's Orion and the Orion Nebula there.
Wouldn't 30 seconds be like Star Trails then?
Not for full frame.
Not
With
for
that
full
focal.
frame.
With that focal length. Right. And actually, I'm lying, because if you zoom in, you can see a tiny little bit of trails, because I was using the 500 rule, which
Yeah.
said 32 seconds, and doesn't work. It's more like 25 seconds for
So
my
this is on
setup.
track, just on a tripod?
Yeah, just tripod. I didn't have a tracker at this point. This was last March. This was at our club site, and this was tracked on my SkyGuider Pro for 60 seconds, ISO 1600. So the club site, if you haven't been there,
Yeah.
come on out next time we're out there. It's really a nice place. It's Portal 4, I think. So like where I am in Batavia, it's Portal 8. So it's pretty good skies out there. But then, this, I'd like to say I planned this, I didn't. The Milky Way just happened to catch a tree. But it turned out to be a pretty cool shot. But there's, just tripod, there's great things you can do on a tripod. Even though this one isn't, you could still do similar, just on a tripod. All right, you can also stack your photos even with the tripod. So you hear us talking about all the time in our own astrophotography through the telescope of stacking. But you can do the same thing with the software and stacking just the landscape photos even. So this one is 5 minutes of stacking time with this 14 millimeter lens. So, I didn't do much processing on it, just stacked it. So it's really, you can see how it's really starting to jump out now in the vibrance. All right, so now we get into the nitty-gritty. So what makes it challenging? I think the biggest challenge is focusing at night, right? So with a telescope, usually you see the members come out of the site, they have their laptop there, and they can focus on the screen. If you're just doing it through a tripod, it's a little more difficult. So there's some tricks that you can use to get around that. Don't use autofocus, right? So you get, say even, like we'll talk about, you can use the moon if it's out to focus and autofocus on. But as soon as you turn around and try to take the Milky Way or some other wide field shot, it's going to try an autofocus again. So you got, if you do use the autofocus on something, turn it off to put it on manual focus on your lens. So you can focus in the daytime on some faraway object, you know, set it to manual, and not autofocus. You can use a bright street light or something that's far enough away. Or you can use the 10x zoom, and I have found it doesn't get, at least maybe it's me, but I have a hard time really getting really super sharp stars even using the 10x zoom. So most of the time when I'm out now, I'm using a laptop and using the algorithms that they offer to get the stars nice and sharp. But you can use the 10x. Any questions on any of that?
Is that like 10x zoom is in a live view mode?
You can do it live view. You can take a shot and then do the zoom afterwards.
So then if it's not focused, you just got to back it off a little and then check it
Yeah,
again, back and forth.
it's a lot of play, and you know, from what I've read, you really want to make sure you go past and come back. It's a lot of work. I'd rather do one of these three things if I knew that's what I was going to do. All right, so what makes it challenging in the settings? You got to remember to know what manual and bulb means. The manual mode allows you to set the amount of seconds that you want to expose to. Bulb would mean it will go. If you're using that shutter release, you can lock it and just, you know, count it off. But the manual mode, at least on the Canon camera, only allows you to do 30 seconds, which is usually fine for wide field stuff. ISO. ISO stands for?
International Standards Organization.
Which means?
ASA.
Okay, whatever. It's just a bunch of numbers, right? So if you're familiar with photography at all, you know it can go anywhere from, I don't know, 100 is the low. Maybe it's even lower. You know,
50.
Kodachrome used to be 25.
Yeah, well. And depending on the camera, you can go all the way up to 32,000 and probably more with some custom settings. Around our area, without a light pollution filter, I can't do more than 800. Just can't. With my light pollution filter, I could do 1250 and do longer exposures. The light pollution filter, it can be really inexpensive too, like $30 to $50 that you just put on the front of the lens, so it's not real expensive. But anyway, so ISO, and what you're just going to have to do is experiment, right? Try it at 1600 and see if it works. And if there's too much noise or if the sky gets blown out with the light pollution, drop it down and try again. Just keep working with it. All right, we haven't talked about exposure time yet. F-stop. Mark, what's F-stop?
It's the focal ratio.
Okay,
It's the
so
focal length divided by the aperture of the lens.
right, okay. So what's important about that? Like I said, I have a 14 millimeter lens. It's really pretty good. But when I shoot at f2.8, which is the lowest settings, what happens? Anyone want to guess? Any of the experts want to guess?
Get more aberration.
Yeah, you get more in the corners. It gets kind of, you know, it gets really dark, and some of the stars start to get elongated. You can get rid of that in post-processing, but if you just stop it down, you know, one stop, you can usually get rid of it, depending on the lens. So that's what's important about the f-stop. The f-stops are usually on your lenses itself. You have to set it manually. Sometimes I forget, and I'm like, why is this turning out so crappy? And I had it set on 22. It's like, okay.
In some lenses, in some cameras, you actually have a mode, you can put even the the aftermarket lenses, you can put them in an automatic mode, and then the manual thumb wheel on the camera will control the aperture.
Right, right.
But that's a function of the camera and the lens.
Right.
It's not guaranteed to work with any given lens and camera combo.
Yeah. So if you really want to know more about that, you probably should talk to Mark or Chris.
Well, the advantage of being wide open is you collect more light. It's pretty up. Your diagram
Right,
shows
yeah.
it very well. You collect more light. And so it, it means the central part of the image will be much brighter, both stars and nebulosity. But the price you pay is that the correction of camera lenses is never optimized at the wide open position.
Right.
It's very difficult because it would be very expensive. There are lenses that were made that way, but they're horrifically expensive.
Right, yeah, that's the nice 4
Usually
to
better off stopping
10,000.
down 1 or 2 stops.
Yeah.
But you don't want to stop down too far because then the diffraction limit of the, like at f5.6 or f8, you actually can see the diffraction, which is an unavoidable physics problem. And you'll actually see it with the
Yeah.
sensors, which is why your Q10, for example, it prefers to be at f4.5 or f2.8.
It does.
If you put it in automatic,
I never do.
because it's actually, that's the sharpest setting for that lens and sensor combination.
Yeah, so like, and that's a really good point Mark makes that. So I usually stop down 1. But if I'm doing the, super wide field Milky Way, sometimes I just don't even do that. I just leave it and deal with it post-processing. So here's a picture of the vignetting. You can see it's a little bit darker over here, right? This was I think this is a 60-second exposure on a track mount. All right, so what makes it challenging? How long should the exposure be? What can I get away with, right? That's the tough part. So, how long can I shoot before I start to see the elongated stars or the star trail? That's the real question. And it's not an easy answer, and this is where the full frame crop sensor discussion comes in. So the full frame, 14 millimeters, it's going to be shot at 14 millimeters. And that's important when you're calculating. A Canon crop sensor would be roughly 30, maybe a little less. No, this would be about 30. So when you're calculating that, that's where it comes into play. 500 roll was for film, right? So it's not perfectly analogous. And as I found out, oh yeah, I'll use the 500 rule down in Sedona, and it didn't work for my camera. So how do you figure it out? Yeah, you're just going to have to experiment, right? So if you're not going to do the 500 rule, which I hope I explained in a little bit, I don't remember. Just try different time lengths. So try 20 seconds, and if that's you zoom in on the with the 10x zoom and look. If you see a little bit of elongation, then drop it down and try it again. So you don't have to know the 500 rule. You just can experiment. The PhotoPills app, which is $10, takes care of all that for you. You don't have to know the 500 rule. You just plug in your camera, plug in your what lens you're using, and even it'll go with the declination if you want. So in the app itself, spot stars. Do that, and so here's my Canon camera, 14 millimeter lens, 500 classic roll, 36. It's not gonna work. There it is. That's the ideal for my camera and lens combo, 22 seconds. So that's a really nice feature. There's other nice features in PhotoPills as well. And it even takes into account the f-stop. It has a, just so you know, it has a default rule, and then it has what they call a printed picture. So it just essentially drops this down to lower.
So is it gonna know the 14 millimeters for a different camera, like
Yeah,
say
you
a
can plug
Q10 is not gonna
Yeah, I mean,
it's
got
gonna calculate it?
It must have 1,000 in the drop down in here.
It's basically the pixel size.
Yeah.
So
It's the
now-
pixel size. So if you had a 2-micron pixel, heaven help you, like you do on a Q10, if you had a 2-micron pixel, your exposure would be half as much as it was a 4-micron pixel. The 500 rule is based on basically a 12 or a 25-micron pixel, because that's how big film grain was,
Right,
about 25 microns, 20 microns.
there you go.
Detailed information, that's good.
Yeah, so that's why the 500 rule is not valid, because
Right.
the resolution of film is nowhere near as good as these digital sensors.
So it knows whether you have APS-C sensor or not by the camera model?
Right.
Yep.
Should.
It's a good $10 investment.
Yeah.
Not just for this, but this, because what you can do with this night AR mode is you can go to a site, say you want to shoot the Milky Way, and you can go to your site in the daytime, use the night AR mode, see where the Milky Way is, and then you can start, okay, I want it with this rock formation over here, and you can set up in the daytime knowing what you're going to shoot later. So it's pretty cool.
What is night AR?
I forgot what the AR is, but it's...
Augmented reality.
Yes.
Oh,
you.
it's
Yeah,
a
you
planetarium program.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's
okay.
just showing you, based on, your.
Yeah. Your location, your time,
Right.
your expected.
You set
time.
the time into the, whatever
Yeah,
part of the night
yeah,
you're gonna
okay.
be shooting.
All right. Or you could use a planisphere made out of paper. Remember those? Do the same thing.
I never saw one.